So what's on tap for today's segment? It's the exit polls, folks. What Pennsylvania showed us. We're going to do a deep dive. We're going to do a forensic dissection and anatomy of the 2022 midterms. We're going to look at the poll question that CNN asked voters why they voted in the way they did. We're going to see what Pennsylvania showed us. We're also going to talk about what happened to the red wave in Pennsylvania. And my other video that's out there, we hope you take a look at it too. It'll be linked up here somewhere. Anyways, it was the one on Florida. And we answered the question why the red wave was actually a super tsunami in Florida. But what happened? Why didn't that wave flow from Florida to Pennsylvania and then from Pennsylvania westward? And the reasons were, folks, is that when you take a look at these questions, it'll show you that some of the parameters that voters were looking at to vote on were different than the way that Floridians were looking at the same type of questions than Pennsylvanians were, or the ones in Wisconsin, or out in Michigan. So we're going to take a deep dive into all this. We're going to get to all those questions in just a little bit. But if this is your first time, we want to welcome you to the Dr. Nasser Sheikh Show. I'm your guest host for today. My name is Dr. Sheikh. And if you haven't done so, we'd certainly appreciate if you go ahead and subscribe to our video. Hit that notification bell so you know of other videos that are out there. And we certainly love your support. We hope you like our content. And let's take a look at that. I believe we're going to go and cut to slide number 3. There's a lot of questions here, folks. I'm going to go through some of the ones that I really feel that are important, that really, got us some good data. But as you see here, about almost 2,700, let's call it 2,700 total respondents between Fetterman and Oz. Let's take a look here, folks. In the age bracket, we saw Fetterman literally from 18 up until 50. I mean, yes, in the 40 to 49, it was a split. What have we always talked about here? It seems that younger voters tend to vote Democratic because you know what? Life hasn't hit them yet. They're, just either coming out of college, out of high school, really no cares in the world, no responsibilities, nothing like that, idealistic, all that, right? Bubbling enthusiasm, ready to go out there and, go out into the world. As I said, no responsibilities, they're not married, no children, nothing like that, no mortgage payments, nothing like that. So they tend to vote Democratic, younger people do. And then later on, probably, hopefully by their 40s and in their 50s and 60s, they realize, holy crap, what did I vote for? And then it's probably too late, especially if you're one of the blue states. But as you can see here, Fetterman did take the younger vote. Marital status. Look at what happened here. Again, we see this. Married, 53% for Oz. Yes, you could say that's a 6 points, but that needs to be higher. But if you take a look at this, look at how Fetterman just crushed Oz in the not married group. Not married, especially among unmarried women, folks, especially among that. Now take a look at the condition of the nation's economy. If you thought it was good, 82% went for Fetterman, 17 went for Oz. That's surprising. If you thought it was good, I would have expected more to go to Fetterman. But look at this. Even if you thought it was not so good, yes, the 66% still voted for Fetterman, even if it was not so good. And then take a look here, folks. If they thought it was poor, you still had 14% go for Fetterman over Oz. That's just amazing, these numbers here. Party ID. Out of the 2,600 total respondents, 37% Democrat, 40% Republican. 94% of those went for Fetterman. Look at this here, folks. There were some Republicans out of that 40% that still went for Fetterman. Where were these Republican votes that went for Fetterman? Were these out in Western PA or were these in the suburbs? And if you were an independent, wow, we thought the independents were supposedly to break for the America First candidates. Not in this case, folks. Oz, no matter what we want to think about it, did not close the case for why Oz should have been the the person that independents should have gravitated to. Take a look at ideology. If you were liberal, all right, yes, 92% went for Fetterman. Moderate made up 41%, right? So moderate Democrats, moderate Republicans, 64% went for Fetterman. That means 64% moderate Democrats, 64% moderate independents, 64% moderate Republicans. That's a huge mix, folks, a 30-point hit. And then if you were conservative, you still, 9% of conservatives still went for Fetterman. I mean, this should have been in the high 90s, but 9%. In a close race of 1 to 2 points, that's huge. Race. We expected this. Oz took the white vote. Fetterman took the black vote. Then you've got the Latinos. Look at this Latinas. A 40-point margin, folks. A 40-point margin. A 40-point margin, folks. That is absolutely huge. Again, we take a look at gender. 50% male of the respondents, right? Fetterman. Oz won the male vote by 10 points. But look at this, by 16 points, he was crushed on the female side. And then you take a look at area type, condition of the nation's economy. Let's go to this one here. If you thought the economy was doing excellent to good, 83% went for Fetterman, 17% went for Oz. But look at this again here, folks. If you thought that the economy was not good, or you were in the poor category, you said that the economy is poor for you, you still went for Fetterman, even with all the things going down, the crackdown on energy, the crackdown on fracking, all the issues that we thought were going to play out, inflation, job creation, obviously not from the Democratic side, wage loss, all of that. They still went for, I mean, yes, Oz won by 18 points, but, I would have thought this number should have been in the teens or lower. Here's the one, folks, abortion. This was huge. We thought it wasn't going to be that big. We thought Roe v. Wade, the energy died down. But this was that, that vote that was just, it wasn't at the surface, folks. It was like the Donald Trump vote. It was suppressed. We weren't hearing about it. We thought that it was going to be what we're seeing in the national polls again, right? The national polls was showing us that it was someplace it wasn't even the top 10, or was the fifth or sixth or seventh, place on people's list of reasons to vote. Not in Pennsylvania, it wasn't. If you thought that abortion should be legal in all cases, 88% went for Fetterman. Legal in most cases, 64% went for Fetterman. Illegal. Now, here's the thing. If you thought it should be illegal in most cases, if that's the case, I don't know who these people are to vote for Fetterman. 10%, unless you were thinking that Oz really said that it should be to the state level or at the local maybe at the local township level, or the rules and regulations should all be relegated to the people within that community. And he got a lot of flack for that. Now, again, take a look here. Abortion, just plain, they asked the question now, legal, illegal. 62% of them thought it should be legal. Out of those, 76% should be Fetterman. If you thought it should be legal, now the only thing I can think of is why this number isn't higher is because those people that voted thought that it should be legal, but it wasn't their number one reason for voting above everything else. That's why I think this number is the way that is right now. Now, if you take a look here, gender by marital status, married men, Oz wins it. Married women, 4 points, okay. Unmarried men, Fetterman. But take a look here, 31 points, folks. And that made up 1 out of every 5. 1 out of every 5 unmarried women said Fetterman was a better choice for them. Take a look at gender by race. Here it is, white women, pretty much even, 51 to 48. Oz won the white men by 20 points. Not enough data over here. We already looked at age, education. Well, let's take a look at education. Here you see Fetterman. If you're a college graduate, you went for Fetterman, 59 over 19 points. No college degree, 6 points. Oz wins it. Education by race, important party control to your Senate. If you thought it was very important, look at this. If you thought that party control to Senate, this should tell you something. That means that wasn't the important thing to win control of the Senate. 74% of the respondents. That's huge proportion. If you thought it was very important, it was tied. Somewhat important, pretty much tied. So that wasn't important to the party control of the Senate. At least I would say, if you take a look at within the Democrats or the Republicans that were voting here. Again, importance of party control. We thought it was important. 50, 41, 91 that thought it was important, they split the ticket. Let's go to, view of Donald Trump. If you thought it was favorable, you voted for Oz. 5%, there was a peel off. Here's a one, if you thought unfavorable, so 60% view of Trump was unfavorable. Now, this is the amazing part here, folks. Look at this. 58, 6 out of 10 said that their view of Donald Trump was unfavorable. So it's unfavorable, yet 16% still went with Oz. You would have thought that this number should have been higher. And this number, right? I mean, I'm looking at it from a purely analytical point of view. And this is obviously an emotional thing here. So if you look at it from an emotional type, you basically say the same thing. If you thought it was unfavorable, what made you vote for Oz? Gender. Democratic men, 92%. You would expect that. Democratic women made up a little bit bigger proportion of that. Again, 95%. Republican men, 22%. Look at this, Republican men. 10% still went for Fetterman. Who were those 10%? And Republican women, 9% still went for Fetterman. Who did that? Fetterman's up in the numbers here. But you know what? You're losing by, you're losing 8, 9 points here. You're losing 5, 6, 7 points here. That's huge in a close election. Let's take a look. Again, education. If you never attended college, Oz wins that vote. Some college, Fetterman a little right here. By about 15 points. Associate's degree, pretty even. A bachelor's degree, all right, we'll give it a 5 points of Fetterman. Advanced degrees. Look, advanced degrees, folks, shows a 66 to 32 in Fetterman. Advanced degrees. Now, what were we saying? First time election voter, they're going to come over to the America First candidates, right? Let's see what happens. 12% of them, not here. Fetterman got 62% of them, folks. 62% of that 10 to 12% here. And again, if it wasn't your first time, it was a statistical tie. But here, when you're winning this by like 30 points, you're crushing it over here. All right, if your opinion of Biden, if you strongly approved of Biden, you took Fetterman. If you somewhat approved, you still took Biden. Now here's what, if you somewhat disapproved of Biden as president, they still went, a somewhat disapproved still went for Fetterman. And if you strongly disapproved of Biden, how does that 7% still go to Fetterman? In other words, with the way Fetterman was, what happened with him in terms of his health challenge with his stroke, and all of the things that we saw about with Fetterman, they still, if you strongly disapproved of Biden, 7% still went with Fetterman. It's these tiny little things, but they add up when the vote is so close within, 1 or 2%. Here's one, folks. If in the past year inflation has caused your family severe hardship, you still 20%, that's 18%. That's like 1 out of every 5. 30%, 29% still went for Fetterman with severe hardship. And then look at this one here, 60%, 6 out of 10 moderate hardship. Half of them, still went for Fetterman, even though they were having moderate hardship. That shows you the inflation wasn't a big concern on these people. Crime wasn't a big concern. It definitely was the abortion issue. That was huge, folks. That was absolutely huge. And then probably climate change and that, even though Pennsylvania has been struck hard with the democratic laws that have been passed in terms of no fracking, energy reduction. It's unbelievable what's going on. But the people still are voting for the Democrats and still getting those Democrat policies that are literally clamping down on job creation. Let's go to, here it is, most important issue to your vote. Look at this here, folks. Abortion, 37%. So what is that? 4 out of 10, nearly 4 out of 10. Inflation came in at second. Immigration was 7, guns 9, crime 11%. But if you're on the abortion issue, look at what happened here, folks. That was an absolute drumming. If it was crime, 2 points. On inflation, yes, Fetterman got the better deal, but you know what? This still prevailed when you talk about this. If you say this evened out, okay, it evened out, but guess what? It's 37% of the respondents over here. There, that's 9 points right there. That's going to add to your, totals a little bit, and then plus all the other issues that come up, add to it to eke out that victory. And here it is. Was your vote to support Biden? If it was, 14% said their vote was to support Biden. 98 went with Fetterman. If you were opposing Biden, 30%. So here's what I don't understand. You oppose Biden, but you still vote for Fetterman? This should be a clear cut 100%. It's not. And if Biden wasn't a factor, which is about half the electorate, a little bit over half of the respondents, 66 went for Fetterman. So if you didn't think Biden wasn't a factor, you went for Fetterman. Was your vote to support Trump? If 17% said it was, 93% went. So here again, these people, we want to support Trump. How do you vote for Fetterman if you're supporting Trump? That's a huge number when the election is close. If you oppose Trump, now here's another one. You oppose Trump. How do you give 8% to Oz if you're opposing Trump? From the Democratic side, if I was looking at it as a Democrat, I'd go, who are these 8% that say they oppose Trump, but they still gave it to Oz? And this is great. This is news for Trump here, folks. Trump was not a factor. Half of the respondents, a little over half, Trump wasn't a factor. If Trump's not a factor, that means they don't care one way or the other. So that means half the electorate, if you project this thing out, didn't care that Trump was a factor. Good news for Trump. He won that by 7 points. Now here's the one. Feelings about Roe v. Wade being overturned. If you were enthusiastic about it, you went for Oz. I don't know how you give 4%. If you were enthusiastic it's being overturned, you shouldn't give anything to Fetterman. Are these Democratic voters that didn't care? Are these Democratic voters that are silent pro-life people? But then if they are, why are they giving Fetterman the vote? You should be giving it all to Oz. If you were satisfied with Roe v. Wade being overturned, you still gave 15% of the vote to Fetterman. Now here's a one on the other side. If you were dissatisfied with Roe v. Wade being overturned, wow, look at that. 40% of the people were dissatisfied, but they still gave it to Oz. And if you were angry about Roe v. Wade being overturned, how do you give 8% to Oz if you're looking at it from the other side of the aisle? So you can take a look at all these. There's so many other questions inside here. You decided. Here's one. Decide on the vote. In the last few days, not enough. That basically, here's what they did, folks. 72% of the respondents, that's nearly 3 out of every 4, they already made up before October. Before October, folks. That means in the summer leading up into fall. 55%, a 10-point went to Fetterman. If you just went in October, he did get late breakers in October by 18, but you know what? It wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough. So again, feelings about Roe v. Wade being overturned. If you were enthusiastic, satisfied, 90%, but you still had 10% that still voted for Fetterman, even though you got Roe v. Wade overturned. What could have made them vote for Fetterman? And then if you were dissatisfied or angry, again, when they take a look at the numbers and they extrapolate them out, 80% and 19% still went for Oz. Amazing, folks. But these questions really showed us why, like I said, the red states got redder, the blue states got bluer. There was a red wave in those areas. It was definitely a red trickle in the other places, and that's what showed in Pennsylvania. Well, folks, we certainly appreciate you taking the time to watch our videos. If you haven't done so, we'd really appreciate if you go ahead and subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. You're watching the Dr. Nasser Sheikh Show. I've been your host, Dr. Sheikh, and I'll leave you with my final parting thoughts, and that's the following. When you're right, you're right, and when you're left, you're wrong. We'll see you again next time, folks. Take care and stay safe.